Sekeres Price for Thursday, July 11th, 2024. We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the iconic Wall Center at downtown Vancouver. And if you're recently engaged, looking for a perfect wedding venue, contact The Wall, sales@wallcenter.com. Let them help plan your special day. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, Grace Asset and Switches, conducting things. Big show coming up for you. We will start with our poll question today. And so inspired by Jeff Patterson, Jay Patter, Canucks reporter,
he's usually our muse. He just loves to inspire us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who has been doing a series of Canucks milestones over at Canuck Army. And he wonders about Quinn Hughes, who is already on the verge of passing Alexander Edler as the all-time Vancouver Canucks leader in points by a defenseman. A healthy season, he should get there this year at age 25. But there have been 8 defensemen in the history of the National Hockey League to hit 1,000 points. We're asking if Quinn Hughes, who's a third of the way there, will join them. Yes or no? You can vote at Sekeres Price on our YouTube and X channels. 333 points in 365 career NHL games for the Canucks captain and reigning Norris Trophy winner as the NHL's best defenseman. To put in perspective what he would require, it's about 8 more years of being a point per game defenseman. If he hits 83, 84 points in 8 consecutive years, he will get there, which is a big ask.
But I think he's playing longer than 8 years. So let's stretch that. Let's go 10 years. Let's see. I think he plays till he's 34, 35.
Right. So if it's 10 years, then he needs 66, 67 points on average.
On average.
A season over the course of those 10 years. Right now, he is 77 points away from eclipsing Alexander Edler, who is at 409. So he still needs actually a really good season to pass Edler. Of course, Edler did it in parts of 15 seasons with the Canucks. This will be 6 for Quinn Hughes. The list of NHL defensemen to hit 1,000 points is headlined by Ray Bourque, who actually got to 1,500. So did Paul Coffey. Then Al McInnes, Phil Housley, Larry Murphy, who I think a lot of people would miss if you were asking for these 8, but sublime offensive defenseman. Like, remember when he couldn't play in Toronto, then he went to Detroit and won cups?
Yep.
Nicholas Lidstrom. That was one of the great sagas.
Now, a lot of these guys, it should be stated, Matt.
Yeah.
Longevity was key, right?
Of course.
Every single player you just mentioned played 1,400 games.
Right. As Nick Lidstrom played 1,500 games. He's 6 on the list. Potvin at 1,060 games
is the most spectacular.
52 points. You could say.
Yeah.
Because by several hundred games, Blake, or I guess 150 games less than Brian Leetch. He's the one guy on that list who did not crest 1,200 games in his NHL career. So Potvin and Brian Leetch round out the top 7 all time. If you're asking where's Bobby Orr, Bobby Orr played 657 NHL games, but did manage 915 points if you're asking for the most impressive from that list.
Now, everybody's voting Quinn Hughes, yes, early on. There needs to be another bit of perspective given here, in that folks think about all the veteran defensemen that are in the National Hockey League right now that have been spectacular. I would venture to say none of them will be able to get to 1,000 points.
So Brent Burns is the active leader in scoring by defensemen. He's at 881 points. He's still 119 points shy. And of course, Brent Burns has had a bit of a different route to those 881 points. He has played some wing. He has played forward or net front on the power play. Erik Karlsson is second amongst your active NHL defensemen at 817 points, which, if he could spend the next few years playing rover for a bad San Jose team, then I would like his chances of getting there. But they are going to expect you to play your own end of the ice in Pittsburgh. So I'm not sure Erik Karlsson gets there either. Chris Letang at 742. Like, now you're starting to get significantly
and
away
also Carlson's stealing points from Letang. Like if Letang was the lone guy, Carlson's stealing power play time and power play points from him.
Yeah. Victor Hedman, 728, Blake. And 33 years old, will be 34 in December. It's probably a bridge too far.
Nope, not happening.
Hedman, 280 points would be what? Like, I mean, that's 4 excellent seasons. But does he hang on into his late 30s and sort of trickle and dribs and drabs? Maybe he gets there. And then Roman Josi at 686 career points. We looked at him because, frankly, he's been amongst the high-scoring defensemen here recently. He's already 34, though, so probably not from the Nashville Predators.
And then we're too far away with all the other guys.
And then you're getting too far away. And really, like, then it's a discussion about which one of these young buck defensemen might be able to rise up over, the next decade, as opposed to anyone getting there in the next few seasons.
And you could have this poll question in Colorado, just the same with Cale Makar, who's at 336 points in 315. So he's actually above a point per game right now. And all the same sort of pressures that he's got, Quinn Hughes has got. He's 25. He'll be 26, though, at the start of the season. So Cale Makar's already running out of time?
Well, no, I think what this underlines, though, Blake, and we've talked about it for several years now on this program, is just what a marvelous class of young defensemen is in the National Hockey League right now, headlined by Makar and Hughes. Like, think of it, like when their careers are done, we can have watched 2 of the top 10 all-time scoring defensemen who came into the league at a very similar time, right? And became extraordinary players for their club, hopefully for a long period of time, because they're so much fun to watch. Now, Paul Paduti of Daily Faceoff, who does some excellent work with regards to ad-adjusted hockey on X. He does some excellent work in terms of era-adjusted stats and Hall of Fame cases based on stats and putting them in context of the era. I voted yes. I voted yes because I was going to vote no, going, that is awfully far away. Got to stay healthy. There's a lot of things going against that. And then I saw what Paul responded to our poll. He said, great poll, guys. I dove into Hughes' career projections this season, and he was at 52% to get to 1,000 points. So a true toss-up. Lots needs to go right. Good health is essential. Have a read. And he links to his column there where the projections are that Hughes would get to 137 goals, 876 assists, 1,013 points in his NHL career. If he hits those marks, he would be 7th all-time in assists by a defenseman, 9th all-time in points. Paduti gives him a 70% chance of hitting 900 points, a 52% chance of 1,000, and even a 1 in 4 chance of getting to 1,250 points.
The 900 point 70% thing is really interesting, which it's fun because it virtually assures this being a story deep into Quinn Hughes' career. Like it's basically saying it's pretty flirty, but we're going to be talking about it for sure.
Right. And 900 points would be more than any active defenseman has right now. Burns is 19 points away from getting there. So
think about the way we respect Erik Karlsson's offensive game and all that sort of thing. We're basically saying Quinn Hughes is going to be at least that, probably ahead of that pace.
And if you are wondering what are the chances that Quinn Hughes could pass Bork to be the all-time leading scorer amongst the defensemen, Paduti has it at just under 5% right now, 4.5%. But he's a marvelous player. It's going to be so much fun to watch him try and get to these historic milestones, because what is the thing that we have remarked about over the last few years with Quinn Hughes is all these different tweets that come out after hitting statistical milestones that group him with guys like Bobby Orr, Ray Bourque, and Paul Coffey. That is some company when you're talking about
staring at that list, though. Doesn't it make you just, wish that Bobby Orr could have played I don't know, like 300 more games. Like he played 600 games.
I know.
How many more records would have just been complete, like
Staggering.
Gretzky, like untouchable? Like Gretzky's 220 points, or would have done that for defensemen.
I know. I've long had affection for the NFL rushing record. And, if Jim Brown doesn't call it quits, if Barry Sanders doesn't call it quits,
right,
like where those totals would be, Bobby Orr, by virtue of injury than anything, the knees, sadly, for Orr gave way, too early, and robbed hockey fans of that era of seeing more of somebody who I think is still universally regarded as the best defenseman who ever lived, right? Like, I'm sure you'll have some people, who are affectionate about Bork or affectionate about Lidstrom or what have you, who would make cases, but it's almost as universal as Gretzky is the best players or the best defenseman in NHL history. We had a schedule release today from the Abbotsford Canucks. And look, the American Hockey League has grown. It has, as we know, gone into divisions. As we know, the Abbotsford Canucks are part of this Pacific Division, the new shooter on the block in the AHL. So, because it is a minor league and because you're trying to keep travel costs down, you don't play the whole league in the American Hockey League. In fact, Manitoba and Laval are the only non-division opponents for the baby Canucks this year. Manitoba, of course, the Moose, the one-time farm team of the Vancouver Canucks, now of the Winnipeg Jets, and Laval, the farm team of the Montreal Canadiens. The season opens October 11th in Calgary, and the home opener is October 25th against San Diego, the American League affiliate of the Anaheim Ducks.
They got to wait a bit for their home opener, and if you just look at the color coding there on the graphic, there are 8 home games between the start of the season and December the 7th. So you're thinking, I've got a very busy fall. I don't want to spring for season tickets. Don't worry, you're not going to miss much. You can still buy your season tickets. And when you're sort of more in hockey mode in December, that's when the home games really kick in for the Abbotsford Canucks.
Right. Yeah, 6 straight there to kick off the month before they head on the road after Christmas. And, we'll see. We'll see what the Abbotsford roster looks like next season, but there's a strong chance that it features Jonathan Lekramacky, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's making the Vancouver Canucks at a training camp. Give him a snowball's chance, but it would be some achievement.
Doesn't figure in with Vasily Podkolzin probably, right? So there's one bigger name that won't be.
Well, that's it. Yeah. I mean, and we'll talk about Podkolzin later in the program with Rob Williams, who's written about him at the Daily Hive, but Vasily now requires waivers, so you can't just send him down to the farm as a young player. He is now vested enough that he has to pass through waivers, and you could potentially lose him on a waiver claim if you try.
You could do the early season waiver. There's so much roster considerations that often teams will try to send a guy like a Podkolzin down right at the outset of the season, thinking everybody's too consumed. Not that they're distracted, but they've got their other contracts to worry about. But it's still risk. You never know when somebody's got the availability in the room to claim a guy like that.
Yeah. Boy, let me ask: does Jonathan Lekramacky bring some people to the yard there?
Yes, but not many. Not many. Yeah. He's a name prospect, but he's not a sin. If he had speed to go along with his shot, I think you'd have people showing up in greater numbers. But situational shooter, I don't know that that's going to bring them in. No. Mm-hmm. Now, if he gets off to and we'll be quick to cover this. If he gets off to a great start in the AHL and is shooting the lights out, because that'll be very consequential for the Vancouver Canucks perhaps later in the season. So, if he creates a stir, then I think he's going to have to create a stir before that happens.
Yes, agreed. And who knows? By March, Tom Weylander might be playing for the baby Canucks as well after his second season at Boston University. If it were to end early or look, even, with how late the NHL schedule is, I would suspect that Wielander's going to get some AHL games next season, regardless, right?
Well, he has to declare, but he has to say I'm quitting school. That's the first thing. But I think he's probably going to.
Yep. All right, let's get to our top story. It's brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Yellow Dog Spirits, and Foolish Winery. England versus Spain in the Euro final Sunday after a thrilling 2-1 victory for the English over the Netherlands on Wednesday. When that goal was disallowed late on the offside, I had a sinking feeling for the English. I went, I wonder. And then there it comes at the 90th minute, Ollie Watkins with a beautiful goal. And joy across the empire, Blake. It was quite a match, and it sets up just an enormous final, right?
A dream match.
Spain has looked so good. England's the team that you either love or you love to hate. And I suspect a good part of this planet will be watching that match on Sunday from Berlin.
It's the most entertaining team versus the team with the biggest storyline, the biggest gorilla on the back, all that. So this is a ratings blockbuster.
For sure.
And I think it might be a pretty game to watch too. I think there could be some really nice soccer to watch as well.
So it's either coming home or it's going to Spain. Of course, England has never won a European championship. They have but the one World Cup championship in 1966. This is a sport that England and the Empire delivered to the world, and they want it back. Thus, it's coming home, or at least they sure hope. Whereas Spain, and I mentioned to you at the outset of this tournament, there was a terrific feature done on the player from the TSN group, actually, and with Stephen Caldwell and Kevin Kilbane discussing the young man on set. But Lamine Yamal is a sight to behold. This 16-year-old Spanish winger who scores a goal from 27 yards out, just an absolute incredible shot, like just perfectly placed. But what gets me, Blake, is he plays a game with the pace that I'm not sure I've ever seen in soccer. Now, I'm not quite old enough to remember Pele, certainly remember Maradona and his romps, through defensive sides. Old enough to remember Ronaldo and everything that he could do, not to mention Cristiano Ronaldo. Of course, Messi's such an outlier. I'm like he doesn't really play with pace at all. He just plays with a galaxy brain.
Messi did.
Sure,
he was fast before. Yeah.
But, like he's even talked about more recently, like, slow down out there, take a moment, see what's out. Walk more than run, right? That one interesting comment of his. I mean, he just plays the game with such intelligence now. He knows exactly where the ball has to go and puts the exact perfect touch at the perfect angle on the ball for his teammates when passing in that midfield. But this kid, Lamine Yamal, he reminds me of Allen Iverson. He's faster on the ball than other players are without the ball. So I'm so looking forward to watching him, and as an England fan, a little terrified at what he might do on Sunday in the final.
Well, we've seen a lot of soccer people and some heads of federations even lamenting the direction that soccer is going, saying there's not enough creativity, there's not enough skill shown, and this is the first time we've really seen this. There's accusations of overcoaching in soccer, of systems ruling all, because hey, if you dumb it down enough, and this is how Greece won a Euro many moons ago, dumb it down enough, slow the game down enough, and it brings teams closer together. So it's good to see flair being rewarded in the case of Spain. Now, Southgate is not being branded as exactly a painter of masterpieces.
No,
but that will be forgiven by English fans at the very least. Maybe not by the rest of the world, though. So let's see how this plays out. But I hope the English are allowed to play some footy in this final as well.
Southgate's getting a lot of heat, but he's in a second straight Euro final. Of course, they lost on penalties to Italy. He's made 3 semifinals, Blake. Which
he's competitive.
I think England has made 2 since they've won in major tournaments. So, he's taken them further than every English manager before him since 1966. And before Grady puts me on E's and O's for Lamine Yamal, he will turn 17 Sunday. So that might be a hell of a birthday present for him. It's still just it's mind-blowing to me that we're talking about a 16-year-old as one of the best players in this tournament. Like, it's mind-blowing enough that a 16-year-old is starting for anybody in this tournament, that it's for Spain, potentially the best team in this tournament is next level, and that he may walk away, with the trophy and tab the tournament's best player is just, it's breathtaking. I'm not sure there are words to describe what this young man could achieve if Spain happens to win on Sunday.
Yeah, there was a few teenagers in the tournament, him at the top of the list, that announced their arrival, and it's good.
Yeah.
The next stars are there for the world of soccer.
The difference is not many of them play for teams that are capable of getting to the semifinal, let alone winning the final, let alone potentially being the best player.
The depth on Spain should preclude him from making this team.
Hell yes.
But it's
think of how good Connor McDavid and Connor Bedard, Sidney Crosby were, Lindros, Bouwmeester, some of our, prodigious hockey talents. They weren't making senior national teams. Well, at that age,
the one opportunity they had, they were forced onto Team North America. Remember that? So that would have been the conundrum in that year of the World Cup. Crafton Country Mountain Festival coming up on Saturday, July 13th. The Big White join Neighborhood Yellow Dog and Yellow Dog Spirits as they pour you samples with a side of food, live music, and beautiful mountain landscape. Grab your tickets now. It's for July 13th, just around the corner, coming up this weekend, the Crafton Country Mountain Festival.
The numbers are in for Canada's semifinal match against Argentina. More than 6.9 million Canadians tuned in, watched some of the semifinal. That's roughly 18% of the country. The average rating, 2.8 million, according to TSN. The Oilers-Panthers Stanley Cup final averaged about 2.1 million. So it outdid the entirety of the Stanley Cup final on average. Certainly didn't outdo Game 7, where as many as 15 million Canadians tuned in to watch some of it. But it was a huge ratings win. And and we saw this at the World Cup with 3 games, another Canadian soccer match that by some margin penetrated a much deeper audience than most every soccer match for Canada.
Good linear growth
team going back to 1986 in the first appearance in the World Cup.
Good linear growth from the opener of Copa versus Argentina. The other group matches lagged a little bit, but then went quarterfinal for Venezuela, bettered the first Argentina matchup. The second Argentina matchup bettered the Venezuela matchup. And so it's getting to a bigger and bigger audience. The one thing that risks it all is the officiating and the diving. Like, as much as I saw people that were pure hockey fans, had never responded to me about soccer, they were watching, and that's great that they were watching. But they were as turned off as they were turned on, unfortunately, Matt. So that's going to be the key here. And I almost thought of that as a poll question today is, do you want Canada back in the Copa? Because going back, it means more of this. It means more of the diving, and the answer should be yes, because it's still world class talent that they're facing, and they need more of these games. We talked about it yesterday, 8 straight world-class matches. They've never played even close to that before. So they should want back. But yeah, you do have to grin and bear it, the fact that it's just officiated and it's played in a very different way than what we want and what we expect.
Well, the good outweighs the bad.
Yeah.
As distasteful as those moments are, the good outweighs it. I mean, unless you're looking at a, dreary 0-0 draw where not a lot happens, but more often than not, the good outweighs the bad. So you tolerate it. Secondly, and you see this a lot when you get in these tournaments and you got more people and people who are newer to soccer commenting, to the point it's the world's game. Everybody loves this sport. It doesn't have to be entertaining or conform to all of your views or sporting values. I say nonsense.
Yeah.
Game can be improved.
Yeah.
Game can absolutely be improved. It is up to the governors of every sport, whether that's league commissioners, whether that's governing bodies, to take a look at their sport, to take a look at their product, television and live event, and say, how can we go about making this better? Like, that's how institutions work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's incumbent on every institution. And, from my viewpoint, if you get rid of the diving and the simulation and all of that, you get a quicker, peppier game, right? You have less controversy about the clock and how many minutes to add and how many minutes you're going to add on top of the added minutes when you get this during added time. And of course, and look, I recognize this is going to sound like an ugly North American point of view, but the final frontier is the United States of America. It's the biggest economy in the world. That's a very, very important market, even for soccer.
Yeah.
And what is the primary sporting value in the United States? Violence. Football. So they don't much like we in Canada, with hockey being our primary sport, don't much stand for, let's call it what it is, weakness.
Well, the inflated soccer ball injuring you in your lower back when kicked at the weakest possible way.
It's just ridiculous. It just, it's it defies common sense. It's incredulous. Even devotees of the beautiful game, I'm sure, recognize all of that.
Now, Matt, I do also recognize that, hey, even in hockey, there's diving in hockey. But generally what we see in diving in hockey is you are tripped and you want to make sure the ref sees that you're tripped. That's generally what we see, generally.
Yeah.
And
it rarely involves rolling around, writhing in pain, as performance theater.
Or no contact at all and you going down. You can point to me to a handful of examples in the NHL over the course of a couple of seasons, maybe. But that's generally not the variety. And I don't think you're going to get that out of soccer. Like DePaul, when Eustachio comes across and challenges him, I thought Eustachio blew him up in real time. And on replay, you can see he just nicks him. So on that one, I'm not going to blame DePaul on that one. He got contact. It was a trip. It's certainly a foul. He just overextended it. You know what? Well, you're not going to eliminate that. If you got tripped, you're going to make sure, ref, did you see me? I got tripped. Mm-hmm. But the outright theatric stuff, that
and let's face it, Blake, like the NHL and hockey fans alike are aligned on this. They want to get rid of all that in the NHL. We're calling diving penalties now, and it's a great dishonor if you're called for one, right?
That's right.
In hockey culture. Secondly, this would be a relatively minor change to soccer in comparison to some of the changes that you have seen in other sports. Like, baseball's a global sport too. Really big in the Caribbean, really big in Korea and Japan. We've gone to a pitch clock here in the last 2 years. For a century and a half, this game was the game with no clock. They were proud of that, right? It ends when it ends. When 27 outs are made or more, if it happens to go extra innings. And most recently, Major League Baseball, and this was like universally applauded. No, the game's too slow. There's too much inaction. We're going to make sure batters get in the box. We're going to give pitchers only so much time. We're not going to allow them to throw over time and time again to first base, trying to catch again. And we're going to put a runner on second base in extra innings in the regular season to help speed that along.
Okay, so Matt,
think of the NBA 40, 50 years ago. We're going to put a three-point line in, fundamentally changing the scoring of the game. And as we've seen in the decades hence, how the game is played. Football a few years ago, this automatic extra point, it's just not working. It's not a play fans want to see. Let's move it back. Let's make it more difficult. We're going to see more misses. Once again, it's going to affect the scoring of the game and the tactics in terms of whether or not to go for one or go for two. Going after diving in soccer doesn't come anywhere near the depth of those changes in those sports.
Here's the segue to the next thing we want to talk about. And I didn't see this segue originally. A big reason I've always felt that South American officials are loath to make calls, whether it's conscious or subconscious, they are afraid of pushback from federations and violence from fans.
Yep.
And part of the downside of how much the globe loves soccer is how much the globe loves soccer, to the point of religion, to the point of results and calls being taken so seriously that people go beyond the pale with their reaction to it.
Remember that one Colombian who got shot after World Cup, right? Mm-hmm.
And so I can't help, again, it could be conscious, it could be subconscious, that guides it is, God, I can't make this call in this moment. It'll just be too much for my life. I can't make this call.
Yeah, exactly.
And we saw it yesterday in the aftermath of Colombia versus Uruguay, where drunk Colombian fans know where the wags are, know where the kids are of the Uruguayan players, and they go down and start harassing the families of the losing team. You've already won the game. You've won.
One Uruguayan player said they stormed our families, called it a disaster, said there was no police officer on hand, although if you look at enough of the video, there are officers on hand. Blake, this continues the criticism of the American organizers here. It was already bad enough that you had the number of pitch issues with the grass that was insisted upon by Common Ball and Copa organizers. We've quibbled about the venues where they've placed Canada, particularly inaccessible venues until the semi for Canadian fans who wanted to cheer on their team. But this one is, beyond the pale. And I got to say, as somebody who has covered a number of big sporting events in the United States, in some cases, sporting events where the President of the United States has been in attendance, U.S. stadiums and arena operators since September 11th, 2001, they're really serious about security.
Yes, absolutely.
That is one of the stark differences, huh, Blake? When you walk into a U.S. stadium or arena and Canadian, although, now Canada has the metal detectors too and all of that. But I was surprised that I didn't see a rush of security personnel getting in between these Colombian fans and Uruguayan players sooner. I was really surprised at that, because that's something typically that I associate with U.S. stadium and arena operators, that if something is going wrong, they have all sorts of manpower that is going to be taking flight to the scene. And I didn't see that in short order.
And part of
that, these Colombian fans and Uruguayan players are exchanging punches.
And part of that contributed to the fact that players on Uruguay then scaled the stadium wall to get up to their loved ones and defend them. And I haven't seen any mention, and this might be one of the few times, Matt, in sporting history where active players enter the crowd and will not be disciplined. I don't know that Darwin Núñez, who's the star player for Uruguay, I don't know that he's right behind the guy there in the white polo.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they're gonna punish Darwin Núñez, given that his family's being attacked there. I think they're gonna say, hey, that was basic human instinct to go up and defend his family,
protect family. Yeah.
So we'll see what comes of that. But again, Uruguay's facing Canada, folks. So that part of it does have ramifications for the third place game on Saturday. But quite a scene, just horrific.
And that video is QC Yavi on the credit. Let's get to the Canadian side of this, Blake, because this is an important game for Canada. Some countries might turn their nose up at a third place game. And frankly, Uruguay might be among them. But to quote Rick Tocchet, who are we in Canada to think we've achieved anything in this sport. This should be a massive match for Canada, because really, Blake, if they don't win this game, what do you take away from this tournament? We beat Venezuela on penalties. We benefited from, other upsets in and around the tournament.
You get 2 wins over 2 good South American teams. I don't know.
Yeah,
I still have some takeaways. You made the semis a Copa. Like, I don't know.
But
there's no down.
No, and I don't mean to diminish it, but the 2 games we played against, really good teams, or really good team, we lost 2-0 and 2-0. So yeah, a couple good wins, one in penalties against the South American side, but this would be the cherry on top. Like, if you beat Uruguay, who's historically been an excellent soccer playing nation, hell, go World way Cup back, they won a World Cup, right? Yeah. Suarez has been one of the great footballers of his generation, still there. And by the way, boy, and if you're telling me, I gotta say, I was not a particularly big soccer fan in the least when I moved to Vancouver 17 years ago, and then via the Whitecaps, via more national team discussion, because you remember once upon a time the women's team was based here. Of course, the women's team and the 3 Olympic medals, and now the men's team. Like, it's 25 degrees outside last night or yesterday afternoon. I got a patio that I normally sit at in the summer, and I am inside riveted to Uruguay and Colombia, because Suarez and the Uruguayans had every opportunity to tie that match and send it directly to penalties. And I absolutely love the drama intensity of penalties, particularly when I don't have a rooting interest. So I'm riveted watching that last night. And look, beating Uruguay would be a big, big feather in the cap of Canada soccer and the men's national team. And so I ask you, who knows the ins and outs of this team better than I do, I don't want them to experiment. I don't think this game should be treated casually. I think it should be treated to win. I want to see Alphonso Davies play every minute of it if it's close. But given the problems you've had up top with David as a solo striker, or with David and Larin, is it not time to experiment there? Should we see David as a solo striker up there, or with someone other than Kyle Larin?
I thought Larin was the better of the 2, though, in the last game. Jonathan David has been
okay, but your future's not with Kyle Larin. Your future's better with David. Would we not agree? Or do you see a formation and world where Canada is better with a bigger post-up style striker like Larin?
I would start
as the secondary guy.
I would start Taniolo O'Shea, to be honest. I would put him and whether that's for David or Larin, I'd leave that for Jesse Marsh. But his strike there was the best scoring chance of the entire game in the semifinal match. He probably should have scored earlier in the tournament, if not for a great save as well. At least he's testing the keeper, and the shots on goal from the other guys weren't testing the keeper. So I would have started him. You look at where the MLS guys are, and you wonder, okay, that's where changes could happen. And as much as, Derek Cornelius isn't MLS, he's a lesser European league. And they've been pretty good. Bombito and Cornelius are getting a lot of attention because of how they've played in this tournament, but they haven't been without fault either. And I know there's talk of Jesse Marsh saying that Luc de Fougerolles from Fulham, chances are he'll start on Saturday. He's
going to start. Yeah, it looks like right back.
That was his words. Chances are he's going to start.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah, that makes sense.
Back, I believe. Yeah.
I mean, that's a defender that could absolutely be in the mix, and he's probably more at a championship level. He's not a Premier League level right now, given his age. But sure, trot him out. Like, is he at a different level than Bombito and Cornelius? No, I don't think so. So, I'd be willing to see that one as well. Now, Kone was great again. That was the best Ishmael Kone's been. So I want to see him back too.
So, I just think you got to play it to win.
Sure. You started to win anyway.
But I also think you have enough evidence through 5 matches here that David and Larin beside each other don't work.
Yeah.
So I think you have to make a change there, an adjustment there, to see what you got, because some of this should be pointed, a sliver of this should be pointed to 2026 and what your best 11 is come the World Cup here, hosted by Canada, the United States.
Well, this is Mexico. The most competitive match you'll probably face until the World Cup. You'll have Nations League and Gold Cup matches versus Mexico and the United States, but it's not a semifinal.
So you don't think any of these Uruguayan players are going to be suspended for this match? I mean, it is the cardinal sin, right? Like don't, the cardinal sin, and they give seminars at the start of seasons, at the start of tournaments, to locker rooms about this, is that no matter how distasteful, no matter how angry or frustrated, do not physically interact with spectators. That is the red line of all red lines.
But there's always exceptions, right? You can never touch an official, right, Matt? You can never touch an official. Max Crepeau goes to run to that side official during that first match where the heat is so bad. He's touching the official a ton there because he's trying to save the official. So, by very definition, at that point, when Darwin Nunez enters the fray, is he Darwin Nunez, Uruguayan player there? Or is he humanitarian trying to save people from violence? Trying to save his own family. I think you can make that argument.
Except he throws punches, Blake. Or at least I believe it was him who throws punches. At least one of the Uruguayans throws punches. So that's not a defensive act anymore.
Well, it can be. Sure. Well, asking somebody to stop punching you is not a great way to stop that person from punching you.
No, I understand. Yeah. But he's moving forward offensively, as opposed to grabbing his child and wife or whomever and taking them down towards the pitch and out of the melee. So anyways, I'm not sure how FIFA is going to look at Copa is going to look at this.
I've done the searches on it. I've seen no scuttlebutt on actual investigations to that regard. So I'm guessing they just turn a blind eye and say, let's just forget he was there.
What? Blame it on
fans being fans. Drunk fans being drunk fans. That's the end of it. Yeah.
All right, let's get to our menu. It's brought to you by Greta. Greta, great spot to catch the game throughout the season or on the weekend, as it is. A quick walk to the rink or stadium. There'll be a lot of people downtown on Saturday. Greta, go-to spot for food, drinks, and fun before and after the game. Make it a game night at Greta, 50 West Cordova, or at GretaBar.com. We'll talk to Patrick Johnston here on a number of Canucks topics. Artur Silovs still without a contract. It's a little curious. Tucker Poolman, what to do there. Projecting forward based on Jay Fresh having the Canucks at 111 points this upcoming season and tied for the President's Trophy with Edmonton. It's his forecast. Talk to Rob Williams as well on Quinn Hughes and his quest for 1,000 points. They have new numbers assigned for the free agent additions for the Vancouver Canucks. Talk about that, as well as Vasily Podkolzin. It is a make-or-break season for the one-time first-round pick and the Russian winger. Time now for our Bet365 Bets of the Day. The segment brought to you by Bet365, proud partner here. Just going to go straight at it here, Blake. My thinking, this game means more to Canada than to Uruguay. And love the value here. Canada plus 525 in a game you'll be cheering on the red and white anyways.
Don't mind that. Don't mind that at all. Have you seen what the Lions have got right now? The early line on the Lions? They're minus 360 on the money line.
That's steep. But Saskatchewan is Saskatchewan playing the backup quarterback again? I believe so.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
But the Lions minus 7 seems just a lot more safe. So I'm going to go Lions minus 7 early on here.
Yeah. I've done nothing but take points in the early CFL going, and it has been a winning formula. So I'm going to stay away from laying points.
And the Lions have played tough, tight games up until it finally broke through, right?
Yeah, well, they absolutely destroyed Hamilton.
But that's momentum. I think that offense has got some swagger right now.
Oh, it sure does. Open an account with Bet365 today. I mean, if you're Saskatchewan, you have to be prepared to cover and rush the passer here Saturday. Because with what VA in this receiving group is doing, you can't cover. If you can't get to the quarterback, you're in an awful lot of trouble. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code VANBONUS when opening that account. Patrick Johnston is next.
Hockey season may be over, but it's always a great time at Greta.
Air hockey season is never over.
Right.
And at Greta, it's the best air hockey table around, but all the best games. So never mind waiting for somebody else to stage something in Vancouver for you this summer. You can stage your own thing. The fun is always there at Greta.
A quick walk to the rink or stadium. It's a go-to spot before the game, after the game. Make it a game night at Greta, 50 West Cordova, or at gretabar.com.
Next guest brought to you by the Arnold Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club. Off to an incredible start in 2024. Amazing course conditions and the service there on course, amazing as well. We're reminding group organizers of 12 or more, it is not too early to book your September and October corporate and buddy outings. And of course, you, the group organizer, plays for free. The prime times are filling up fast. Get on this. Tell us about your group. whistlergolf.com/groups. Here he is from the Province and Post Media Canucks beat writer, Mr. Patrick Johnston. How are you?
Well, the takeaway there is it's good to be the group organizer.
Oh, that's right.
Sure.
Yeah,
well,
don't
the group organizer should get some sugar here, right?
Don't
like,
tell people that you're doing it though. Don't just you make it sound like it's a philanthropic endeavor that I'm just doing this for us as friends.
No. Or you just lay it bare. I'm tired of chasing you guys for money after all these years. So guess what?
Yeah.
I'm playing for free, and the rest of you are paying. Let's go have us a day or a weekend.
As a sometime group organizer, I think that free round is it's the least you can do.
Somebody, in fact, at the it was at the Vancouver Canadians game that we were at a week ago Saturday, Patrick. Somebody asked me, why don't you do boat party anymore? And the main reason is we kind of outgrew boat party, but the second reason was, and this was before electronic transfers of money, right? Like chasing people for money became a full-time job. So
running a beer league team, I've taken over. This is the good thing. The Dave and Trev, who ran our beer league teams, full credit to them, because they figured out long ago that the number one item in player recruitment is, do they pay their
teams? Exactly. Will they pay
That's it.
promptly?
But Interac e-transfers,
I don't care how good they are.
Interac e-transfer should have eliminated all of
it.
Should.
Good word choice. Should.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into the Canucks.
Yeah, sure.
You've written about Arturs, or you're writing about Arturs.
No, I wrote about him the other day, yeah.
Okay, you wrote about Arturs. She loves. Thanks for reading. Why is he still
what gives?
Well, why is he still RFA?
I'm not sure. I mean, I suppose I had a few thoughts. Agent didn't get back to me. But I'm not sure if he ever gets back to anybody.
I mean, what are the windows of negotiation here? Like, there's not a whole lot.
He doesn't have our rights. Yeah.
The pondering I did was, are they waiting to see if the Canucks say get off the Poolman contract, and then there's a little more wiggle room for a Silovs number? I mean, otherwise, there's like $1 million right now, kind of sitting there unspent, and presumably it's for him. It's sitting back being, what are your comfort levels? There's a bit of, I suppose, on the player's side saying, listen, we know you need me, so what are you going to do about it? He doesn't have a whole lot of leverage. There was the noise that we got last month where, maybe we're not sold on him. And, I think some of that was real. I think that was not necessarily that they don't think he can make any more starts in the NHL, more that what's going on with Demko, and what if we need 20, 30 starts? What if we need a long run of starts? But I mean, we're now past that, so it's not like there's guys sitting out there that are going to solve that problem.
Also, he gave them a bunch of starts in the playoffs. Like, if he can start playoff games for you for 3 weeks, surely he could do it in the regular season.
Yeah, exactly. So I just it is a bit of a head scratcher because it's not like there's any great mystery here. He's an RFA. He's, I think, proven he can play in the NHL.
Not be a 1A, but he can play in the NHL. Yeah,
be a backup. At least be as good as Casey DeSmith, who was a pretty decent backup. And Casey DeSmith just got through, a pretty nice contract in Dallas. So maybe Silovs has gone, well, what about that guy? He got that. And they'll be like, well, he has many, many years of NHL experience and you don't. So that's sort of the best I could guess on all of this.
Do you
because they're not signing Yuri. They didn't sign Yuri Patera to be the backup. I mean, the guy is there to be a number 3, and that's it. Like there's no mystery there.
Let me ask you this, because Saravelli put this pebble in her shoe a few weeks ago. That is there a team that is so high on Silovs after his postseason exploits that they wait for the Canucks to basically cap themselves out and then come hitting with an offer sheet? Do you think there's any chance of that?
Yes. Someone emailed me and said, "Do you think there could be this?" I'm like, yeah. He's in the realm there where there should be more. It's one of those ones. There should be more offer sheets at his level of play because the price is very low. I think a $2 million offer is a 3rd round pick, if I'm not mistaken. Like, it's nothing.
Mm-hmm. So you could do it to be sporting if you're an enemy of the Vancouver Canucks, just to piss them off, right? I mean, you could sink it. You could sink another team with a cap hit that you they're going to match, but they're not going to be happy to match.
I mean, the thing that that did used to happen. People forget the reason why Matthias Olin got his first ever contract in the NHL was because Bill Waters said, "Enough of this, Pat Quinn. Stop being cheap with your guy, and I'm going to try to pry him away." So I mean, it's not like it hasn't. It's just been it hasn't happened before. It's just been a very long time. Yeah, I wouldn't. The fact Frank brought it up, we all know someone kind of aired that to him, whether it happens or not.
Sure. Well, no, your point is a fair one, though, Patrick. Offer sheets are like Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. You hear a lot about them.
Yeah.
Nobody ever sees them.
No.
So,
I
have my doubts, but I mean, you would have to think the Canucks match for a 3rd round pick and just are upset about what they're paying them.
Yeah, exactly. And then they have to make some choices, but they do have some wheel room. Like I was doing this the other day. I'm doing it right now. You go through teams that you could conceive of being interested in adding him, and like they kind of already got their goalie. Like even Chicago, Connor. They got Mrazek and Brossoit. It's not amazing, but like if you're being asked to pick your goalies, like but are they really going to go and say, this is a guy that we're really jumping over for? Like, they've got Kemper, they've got Rittich. Like, like it is.
Rittich.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying. Listen, I don't disagree, right? But is it worth it? Is it worth it even trying? I don't know. Are they trying to trade? I don't know.
Okay, we skimmed past something that's pretty important here. Do you think they can trade Tucker Poolman's contract?
I mean, I reported in March. Trade deadline. No, February? When's the trade deadline?
Early
March.
Late.
It's around my birthday.
It's
around my birthday. As it reported in early March, Patrick Alvin told me, yes, he has been trying, at least at that point, to get rid of the Pullman contract. And he brought it up. I don't remember which availability was, but he talked about accruing cap space. I think it was at the deadline. He says, we haven't been able to accrue cap space. It's something he would like to do, which to me factors into the number on Silovs, because it's like $1 million and change right now of space if you have Poolman on the roster. And that is what their dilemma is. Can they keep the change there? And if they can keep the change, it's not a lot, but as the season rolls along, that stuff starts going in the piggy bank. And if you have even a few $100,000 to play with at the deadline, that makes a difference. That is something that inhibited what they wanted to do this year. That was, I think, in the end, why they couldn't land Tanev, because they needed retention on Tanev, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't find any other way to make it work. and that was the reality. And so the Poolman contract continues to prevent that. And I think you should be willing to get. I think that cap space is far more important than any whatever late round pick might be the price. And if it takes, the only things that matter, and I wrote about this last week, are first and second round picks. Like late round picks just don't hit anymore. So just move off of your third, your fourth, your fifth, your sixth, your seventh. If you trade all 5 of them, if you want, right?
So you pay a third round pick to get rid of Tucker Poolman. That sounds reasonable for me. No,
sure, whatever. You know, like you know. So maybe that's the other factor. And this is we're sitting and waiting. Like there are. That's a kind of move that probably doesn't happen until training camp. Once teams have a really firm, upfront sense of where they're at, what they're going to look like, what they're going to be doing this season, who's gotten hurt, who really is ready to go. And so that point, you know, whether it's Chicago or San Jose or any other, you know, I suppose Utah is still in that range, you know, teams that have some cap space to work with to absorb of the last year of the Pullman contract, you know, that maybe that's what we're waiting on to go back to Silovs. Maybe it's just that there's a number that they want to get to, but they're just not ready to, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's in the end, the Pullman deal would allow them to do a lot if they could get rid of that, but that gives you another, you know, 2.5.
Yeah.
So
and you spend the, you know, then you look at like Mark Friedman and you take that and that becomes over 3 million. You just, you know, he's not on your roster. You know, there's the 3 million. That's a decent player. Like that's that's a useful, handy player that you're gonna, you know, maybe you can trade for or whatever. So this is obviously me spitballing and drawing what we do know off of what we do know. So there's still some possibilities here.
So explain to them, should it come to pass that they don't trade the Tucker Poolman contract, they got a couple of ways they can go about accounting for that in training camp.
Well, I mean, there's LTIR, right? Like, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, it's space you can still work with. You are allowed to replace if the player is injured and can go on long term. You can replace essentially the player. You don't get to save money. That negates the whole idea of accrued money. However, that particular contract, however it's going to be replaced, you can exceed. Basically, you can push that contract all the way off the books.
That's
as long as you're at the cap. As long as you're at the cap.
Yeah, but I mean, so if it's even a portion, you can exceed by the portion. Anyway, it's an accounting maneuver. So you can essentially replace up to $2.5 million of his contract.
But it's cleaner if he's just not there.
That's if you put him on LTIR after you set the roster, though.
Yeah.
Right.
Like there's ways to do it. There's maneuvering you have to do. Absolutely, exactly. But it's not like they've lived with this reality for 2 seasons, right? Like Poolman hasn't played since January of 2023. I saw him play in 2023. So he hasn't played in a year and a half and really hasn't been a factor for almost 2 seasons. So, but it's the last thing they have that's that sort of cap blockage. It's a minor one, but it's one that they would rather use that money on a real player. But we know that they've said that.
Jay Fresh, in his first projection at the NHL standings, has the Canucks at 111 points, tied with the Oilers for first in the Pacific and first in the league.
Yeah.
What do you think of them apples?
Oh, it's about scoring goals, I guess. The defense certainly is at best the same.
Yeah.
It is a reminder to me about at the end of the day that where the league is at, it's about scoring goals, and scoring goals is something the Canucks did very well, even when they weren't shooting the lights out. Now, late in the season, obviously, and into the playoffs, they got away from that, and I'm very curious to see how Rick Tocchet finds his way back to that scoring squad. He does obviously value defense and playing tight and pretty safe hockey, but there's scoring talent here. You've got JT Miller, you've got Quinn Hughes, you've got Elias Pettersson, you've got Brock Besser, you've got Jake DeBrusk, you've got Phil Pronik. Like, you have a very, very strong top end. And if they do fix their power play finally again, that's a story right there. That's going to be more offense. So the projection is obviously in an expectation that they are going to get back to scoring, perhaps not at the level that they were in the first half, but that there's talent on this team, and this team is one of the more talented offenses in the league, and coupled with a strong defensive setup and when healthy, a great goalie.
But did you, in your mind's eye, did you even have them top 5 in the league? Like if
No.
I probably sketched it out, I probably got them 10th in the league.
No, I think that I think you look at sort of with the ESPN ranked them 9th, I think, and I was like, yeah, they're in the top third. We, as the season progressed last fall, and they were shooting the lights out. You're like, this is great, this is awesome, but they're not going to finish first overall. They are like a top. They ended up being a top 5 team, which, was because of some bounces, I guess. And being top 10, given where they've been, was nothing to sniff at. But in the end, a top 10 team is not the same as a top 5 team, because a top 5 team inevitably is a team that's truly pushing for the Stanley Cup, and they want to be a top 5 team. So to see the projection suggest that they are a top 5 team, I went, okay, it's interesting. Maybe this will work out better than I thought. But
top 10 teams, you mean 5 through 10 aren't contenders, Stanley Cup contenders, but they can win the cup.
No, top 10, like virtually every Stanley Cup champion. I think there are a couple of exceptions. The LA Kings, the one year they went from the 8th seed. Virtually every Stanley Cup champion comes from the top 10 overall standings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So top 10, you're right. Like, they're in the mix for sure. And the best team never wins, but it's the team that's like 4th overall, and there's a reason why. Like, it's that they know it comes back to what I said with the goal scoring. They know how to score goals, and they play good enough defense. And I would say by the end of the year, the Canucks were playing really good defense and scored enough goals, had good enough offense. And they want to flip that paradigm a little bit. But again, listen, people, they're a good team. Like, they are where they should be. I do think DeBrusk, and we've talked about this before, DeBrusk does make a difference. That is a top 6 winger. They wanted a top 6 winger. He's not Jake Gensel. He's not Sam Reinhart. He's not even probably Steven Stamkos, but he is a top 6 winger who can score. There's a bet here on Danton Heinen, who's had some good seasons in his career. He's not a super flashy, exciting player, but a player who does a lot of things really well and can put the puck in the net, and will add something to that sort of, whether it's one of the top lines or he ends up the third line. Dakota Joshua, obviously, can he score 20 goals again? I mean, there are some good questions here. There's some expectation here, but there's a lot of reasons to think that a lot of the things that worked this past season should work again. And so to see them in the range that they're in is not surprising. To see them at the very top, I was a little bit surprised.
Ask our poll question today. Quinn Hughes, 333 points in his career.
Yeah.
A third of the way to 1,000. 8 defensemen have done it. Think he gets there?
Well, he turns 25 in October. He's had five seasons, right? So, it's a hell of a pace to carry on at. I'm still blown away that Ray Bourque got 1,500 points. I mean, Ray Bourque was amazing. 1,500 points. You look at those 80s guys and the numbers they were able to put up. Phil Housley, 1,200. Paul Coffey, 15, also 1,500. Al McInnes, Larry Murphy, Nicholas Lidstrom, Dennis Potvin, Brian Leach, the 8 guys. But those are all names that we've seen Quinn Hughes paired up with in his achievements over the past year. Like that season, I mean, I wrote a thing about why he is the Norris favorite, and I don't remember when it was, February or March, and every single thing that kept rolling out from the NHL stats machine would tie him to the likes of Bourque and Coffey and Orr. Bobby Orr didn't get 1,000 points, by the way, but 915 points in 657 games in an era.
I think he could have got there. Yeah.
No one was doing that. I mean, it's astounding what he's done in a game in an era where the skill level is so high, the game is so fast. Scoring is up, but not for fluky reasons, but for pure skill reasons. I think he can do it unless there's some dramatic change, like they start letting goalies wear sumo suits and there's no space left to shoot. There's every reason I think he will continue to put up. I mean, he needs realistically to have, just to sort of set a pace for himself, he needs to have 3-4 more seasons like the one he just had.
Right.
Like realistically.
He needs 8 more point per game seasons to get
there.
Roughly.
So if you say, you're talking about 90-ish points like he did this year, that gets you ahead of the curve a little bit.
So that
you're
can
gonna
fade.
Because realistically, you're gonna have to fade. He's in it's like talking about like the Ovechkin goal scoring, chasing Gretzky. Like it's possible. It's a reminder of just how really
right. Like a 65 point per game, a 65 point per season defenseman is an elite offensive defenseman. If you did that for 10 years, you'd still only have 650 points. Like you're not even close yet. Like it is absurd.
And the heartening thing, I would say this, is if you look at Ray Bourque, as I said, 1,500 points. Ray Bourque, for the last 5 seasons of his career, averaged more than 50 points a season. And that was in a dead puck era. So, there's every reason to think that with Hughes' talent level that he should continue to score at a point per game pace for a very long time. So yes, it's not unreasonable to say yes, he could be the 9th defenseman. I mean, maybe Cale Makar will beat him there, but or Joe Yossi. There's reason to think that this could absolutely happen. Yes. So I'm voting yes. That's the question.
Actually, one Stanley Cup champion from the last 12 has finished below 10th in the standings. St. Louis.
There you go. Yeah.
St. Louis did.
Who played like a top 5 team
for the second half.
Yeah. Context matters as always. Yeah.
What else was I going to ask you? Oh, I think that's it. Unless you have a word or two about the great
practice
Canadians.
Facilities. Oh, I was going to say practice facilities.
He would have led with that. Yeah.
I mean, I've heard UBC might. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I think as we got, Jim Rutherford did admit at one point. He said, land is harder. It's more expensive than I realized.
Yes.
But I know. I will continue to poke on this question. To me, UBC continues to probably make the most sense, but obviously they would need a partner there. And
well, no, I mean, if he just digs a little deeper into the billions, he doesn't need a partner.
Oh, go across the street. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Patrick.
I have a fun one, actually. Yeah, if you guys really care, since we're talking about property development anyway. The one across the street's been sold. I don't know who to, but the guys that used to own it that were there forever has been sold. So
a new negotiating
happened there. I don't know. That they were supposed to be digging 2 years ago.
Maybe he bought it.
I do not believe
through a proxy. Come on.
Do you not think through a numbered company? They're big on numbered companies.
No, I was told it was an Asian buyer.
Okay.
But I don't know who.
You sure it's not a numbered company from Delaware?
I can't confirm or deny. I've done very little digging into this one, but I was told it was an Asian buyer.
He's in the infancy of exploring that story, ladies and gentlemen. He'll have more in the province.
I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks, guys.
Oh, are you? So you're not joining us next week? Or you are from Ontario?
I can't. Well, I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye.
See ya.
The Vancouver Canadians are back at the Nat. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com.
Joined now by the national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports vertical, Rob the Hockey Guy on Twitter. Rob Williams joins us here on Sekeres Price. How are you?
Doing great. I feel like I'm being Rob the Soccer Guy this last week, but yeah.
You got the Grizzlies hat on, so just before we delve into the Canucks, are you more excited about the soccer team or the basketball team here this summer?
Well, I think we got to shift to. I mean, we've got the women obviously in women's soccer at the Olympics, which is always a highlight of the summer games. I think since London certainly. We've seen them win gold before, though. We haven't seen Canada basketball do anything of note in the Olympics. Yeah. Besides a nice run to the quarterfinals by the Steve Nash team in 2000. So yeah, I tuned in a little bit to Canada USA last night for that exhibition game, and I think it's really intriguing to see what they can do. Like, we've never seen this kind of collection of stars on the floor at the same time for Canada. Like, this is going to be the best Canadian men's basketball team we've ever seen put together, and hopefully they deliver.
What do you think the sports have to do with how much they'll cheer on these teams? Like, basketball is not really in the fabric of Canadians, and neither is soccer. But so many Canadians are immigrants or come from immigrant backgrounds, so the soccer fabric is kind of there. Do you think basketball has the ability to be woven in here?
Yeah, I mean, more kids play soccer in this country than play hockey, right? Like, soccer is I feel like everyone's played it, but that's changing big time with basketball now too, right? Like, you look at the amount of, especially out of Ontario, right? Like the Raptors, I think, have changed a lot for people's consciousness of basketball. So I think this is definitely going to become something. I mean, we would get behind the field hockey team, the water polo team, if a Canadian team starts going on a run in the Olympics. I think we'll get right behind it. But yeah, there's going to be, there's a little more glitz and glamour to men's basketball at the Olympics, and we've never really had much to do with it. And I think now to if they can only get out of the group now, they're in the group of death. So that does worry me a little bit. But I think there's going to be an extra spotlight on Team Canada in basketball for sure.
Well, to me, that's been the travesty of the soccer project in Canada. That It's been basically 12 years of results for the women's team, and the men's team is just now starting to take flight. I mean, other than First Nations people, we're a nation of immigrants from soccer playing countries, and every single Canadian schoolboy or girl plays soccer, and yet still it took until the 21st century for us to get any degree of competency in this sport. But I think you're also right about basketball. And look, we've heard basketball is the sport of the future for decades now. So there's been a little bit of a failure to launch there as well. But you take a look at the team that started that game last night for Canada and who they come off the bench with, and I think you're looking at I think you're finally looking at a team that's in ascension that can win a medal at the Olympics. Okay, let's get back to the Canucks here, Rob. So JPAT has written about Quinn Hughes at Canucks Army. He's likely to pass Alex Edler next year at 25 years old as the all-time leading scorer amongst Canucks defensemen, which is, speaking of failure to launch, right? Canucks and Blue Liners. 333 points in 365 career games, a third of the way to 1,000 points. Only 8 defensemen have done that in NHL history. Do you think if he stays healthy, we're looking at a guy who can join those ranks?
I mean, if he stays healthy, I think certainly. I mean, he looks like a guy that could, the way he skates, I think he could play for a very, very long time. And all he does is pick up points in games, right? He just always, I mean, I don't need to tell your audience about the greatness of Quinn Hughes, like a phenomenal defenseman. Yeah, the key is staying healthy. If he stays healthy, he should have a very long career, and I don't see why he wouldn't continue on this trajectory for a very long time. And yeah, good observation by JPAT on joining the ranks. I mean, it seems like he keeps collecting all of these like single season records or streaks and things that only Bobby Orr and Paul Coffey and Ray Bourque have done. So why not join those guys? In the all-time list of great defensemen in NHL history. I think it's certainly possible.
The only question I've got, Rob, is what does his career look like at the age of 30? Because the very best, most nimble defensemen aren't as nimble at the age of 30. So when he's right on the precipice of breaking this record, what does Quinn Hughes look like when the feet don't move quite as fast?
Yeah, but I think he's not like a speed burner, right? Like he's a great skater, but he's not doing it by blowing by guys like Pavel Bure-esque, right? Like it's more along the lines, I would say, of like a Scott Niedermayer type of guy, right? With great edge work and very elusive and just smart and obviously great passing instincts and all the rest. And I think those are the types of things that could that could translate, into his 30s for sure.
Rob, sorry, Blake.
I was just going to say 740 points for Niedermayer, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Who is, sensational, but the brilliance of Scott Niedermayer wasn't necessarily generating points. It was in the absolute heart of the trap era. You'll remember these guys.
Yeah.
The one-man trap breaker, right? Like the one guy who could just skate calmly, coolly, collectively, and quickly through all of the forechecks, through the neutral zone and the trap.
And the trap might have been about a 260-point punishment for him over the course of his career, right?
Well, especially in New Jersey, right? Like, how many years was he playing in New Jersey, and he probably could have been, racking up 50% more points for sure.
For sure. The new guys, we have numbers assigned, Rob, because a 74 and a 73 were signed in free agency. But tell us about the new guys and the numbers.
We have numbers. The Canucks announced the jersey numbers of all their new signings. Astute observation by Daily Hive's Noah Strang that Derek Forbort, of course, wore 28 in Boston. I didn't even think of this, but he wore 28 in Boston. He's worn other numbers throughout his career, so by no means is that necessarily like his only number in the NHL that he has to wear. But of course, he did. We didn't go through the whole thing that we went through last year with Ian Cole taking 28, not being aware of it or being made aware by the club. So thankfully, Derek Forbort is wearing 27, so we don't have a little mini drama there. Jake, I was going to call him Louis DeBrusque. Jake DeBrusque is wearing 74. We have another new 44. I sort of always think of Todd Bertuzzi and Dave Babich with that, but Kiefer Sherwood's going to be wearing 44. I kind of went down like memory lane here of like all the guys. There's been a lot of like 44s being worn by Canucks players since Babich and Bertuzzi. Like you go down the list of like Nolan Baumgartner, the great Adam Clendenning, Matt Bartkowski, Eric Gabranson. So hopefully he has Kiefer Sherwood has a bit more luck wearing that number. Vincent Desharnais, number 73 is a pretty easy number to get on the team. And we've also got Danton Heinen wearing number 20. And I guess they did also give the jersey numbers for their other two signings, Yuri Patera and Nate Smith. I'm not sure if they're going to be wearing those in Vancouver or Abbotsford, but Patera wearing 30 and Nate Smith wearing 83. I guess Jay Beagle's old 83 there.
Oh, wow. How about that? If you're going to play fourth line center for the Vancouver Canucks, let it be.
Pick the smallest skates to fill, if you will, right?
And we should just explain, Luc Bourdon wore number 28. So it's not officially retired or anything like that. It's just a respect thing. You wrote on Vasily Podkolzin. What gives?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think I'm the only one to make this observation, but it's make or break time for Podkolzin now, right? Like this is now 5 years. We're now more than 5 years since he was drafted 10th overall in 2019. I think all hope is lost in terms of like thinking that he's going to live up to like certainly a top 10 pick and probably a first round pick. But I think there's a lot of tools there of a player that can make an impact at the NHL level, but he's 23 now. He's going to be waiver eligible next season, so they can't just toss him into the AHL. This is, goes without saying, but it's a very, very important year. I mean, if he can't crack the lineup now, like this could be a trade candidate. Certainly, this could be. I don't know if you throw him on waivers, I think you definitely lose him at this point. I think there would be another taker in the league. But yeah, this is a guy that like we need to see it now. Like it can't be, he does this and that well, but there's no payoff. Like, he had, played roughly a quarter of a season for the Canucks last year and contributed no goals and 2 assists. I mean, I know he does a lot of the other things on the ice well, and I've noticed them as well. And Rick Tocchet has praised his forechecking, and I think that's certainly an area where he's been pretty good for them. But it can't be, he can't be posting like low numbers like that. Like, he needs to find the back of the net every now and then. He needs to find a way to be a part of a line that generates a bit more often.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I have been put on blast by some listeners who wonder why I've been so harsh on Podkolzin, one vowing that he is going to shut me up this fall.
Oh,
no, but here's well, first of all, it's time for the training wheels to come off with this player, right? So it's no longer about, oh, look at all the little things, as Rob outlined, that he's doing as a young guy, dipping a toe in the National Hockey League. Now it's time to look at this player objectively, impartially, and look at what we're seeing and what we're not seeing. And the biggest surprise for me is that we seemingly thought Vasily Podkolzin is tailor-made for Rick Tocchet hockey. A big body getting in on the forecheck and wall work and all of those things. And yet still, guys, we didn't see it last year. Like, to me, that's the biggest concerning part of Vasily Podkolzin, is you seemingly have a coach and a system and a structure that is tailor-made for your body type and your game, and still the results weren't there last year.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I think they went about it the right way with him last season, where they just kept him in the AHL for until March, right? Like, they called up other players instead of him, kept him in the AHL, let him kind of marinate there for a little while. I think it was definitely the right approach. And I think we were probably, at least I think I was expecting a little bit more once he finally got that shot. Although it has to be said, like, the reports out of Abbotsford, like, we weren't hearing massively glowing reports that Podkolzin had really taken the next step. Like, he was sort of in the mix with Baines and Carlson and Sasson and these guys in Abbotsford. So yeah, I do wonder about that. Well, at the same time, I did think, like, when he got called up and the playoffs started and they tossed in Carlson to a game, I did think that Podkolzin looked the best of all of the bunch that came up from Abbotsford. I thought he was the best fit and did those, like we said, doing the little things, but there can be more. Like, there should be more. I think we should be, he should be expecting more, and the Canucks should be demanding more.
Do you figure he was an X factor in the playoffs, Rob?
I wouldn't go so far as to say an X factor. I just sort of, he only got in 2 playoff games, and I was just sort of thinking, like, okay, I would have liked to see him get into more than the 2 playoff games, because I thought that he, was quick in on the forecheck and doing some of those things that you'd like to see. And I wasn't expecting a goal from Carlson, certainly. So you hope to see just a bit of energy from Podkolzin.
Yeah, great stuff, my dude. Thank you for the chat. We'll be reading on Daily Hive and Offside. We'll catch up next week.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody! If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise, more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.